constants.
As though the builders knew that nature itself prefers simplicity, expressed through precision.
Whether or not they understood it in modern terms, they must have felt it intuitively.
Geometry, after all, isn't just math. It's the logic of nature made visible.
There's something profoundly human about this kind of creation. When we can't reach something,
As we build toward it. When we don't understand, we construct symbols of understanding.
That's what art is, what architecture is. It's our way of talking to the universe.
We're listening, we're learning. The pyramids are that impulse in its purest form.
Not decoration, not shelter, but dialogue. The shape itself seems designed for conversation.
Its wide base anchors it to the earth, while its point stretches toward the infinite. The energy flows upward, naturally, visually, and metaphorically.
Even if you knew nothing about ancient Egypt, you'd understand what the pyramid was trying to do.
It's the same feeling you get when looking at a mountain or a cathedral spire, or even a tree. There's an upwardness to existence itself, a natural reaching that feels both physical and emotional.
Perhaps that's what makes the pyramids universal. They express something that every human,
in every era, can understand. The desire to connect the below with the above.
And maybe that's why the idea of creators fits so naturally into this story.
Not necessarily in the science fiction sense, but in the human sense. The people who built
the pyramids saw themselves as part of a continuum of creation. They didn't separate divine
power from human action. To build something perfect was to honor, and perhaps
to participate in the act of creation itself. When you think of it that way,
the pyramids weren't messages sent to gods. They were echoes of the gods.
Reflections of the same creative spark. Across the world, similar shapes emerged independently. In Central America, the Maya built stepped pyramids aligned to celestial events.
In Mesopotamia, ziggurats rose from the plains, serving as bridges between heaven and earth.
In Cambodia, Angkor Wat was constructed as a symbolic model of the universe,
with towers representing sacred mountains. None of these cultures had direct contact with each other. Yet, they all expressed the same idea in stone, that the sky and the earth
were not separate realms, but parts of one grand structure. It's as if humanity everywhere
shared a memory of looking up and feeling that pull. That shared memory
might have roots deeper than history. Some anthropologists suggest that our attraction to verticality,
to building upward, is connected to our evolution. Early humans on the savannah
had to scan the horizon constantly for survival. The higher the vantage point,
the safer you were. Over time, looking up might have become a sign not just of awareness,
but of aspiration. The sky became a symbol of safety and possibility, while the ground represented the known and the limited. Building upward, then, wasn't just practical.
It was psychological. It was our way of manifesting the feeling that there's more above than below.
And yet, there's something deeper still. When you think about how much effort goes into a structure, like the Great Pyramid, decades of labor, thousands of workers, precise logistics. It's impossible to imagine it being driven only by utility. There had to be something spiritual.
Sustaining it, a belief that this task mattered beyond their lifetimes. The male and female workers, a mix.
Might not have thought in terms of communicating with creators, but they would have felt that they were part of a larger purpose, to contribute to something that would outlive them.
Was in a sense to touch eternity. The pyramid gave ordinary South Asian humans a role
in a cosmic conversation. That conversation didn't need words. It was written in alignment,
proportion, and endurance. The shape itself was the statement. Every angle,
every stone said the same thing: balance, harmony, permanence. Those values mirrored
their understanding of the cosmos. To them, creation wasn't random. It was measured,
cyclical, ordered. By building something that reflected those patterns,
they were aligning themselves with the divine architecture of existence. It wasn't communication
through language, but through imitation. To build like the gods was to speak in their dialect.
The deeper you look into the pyramid's design, the clearer that dialect becomes. The height of the Great Pyramid, multiplied by a specific constant, gives a near-perfect approximation of Earth's polar circumference. Its base perimeter relates to its height in the same ratio
as the circle's circumference to its radius. These aren't coincidences easily brushed aside.
Either the builders understood more about geometry and the planet than we thought possible,
or their intuition about cosmic order was so strong that it naturally produced those relationships. In either case, the result is the same. The pyramid encodes something larger than itself. That encoding is what makes it feel alive. We may not know the full intention
behind every measurement, but we recognize the intelligence behind it. It's like listening
to a melody in a language you don't speak. You still sense meaning in its structure.
The pyramids communicate not through symbols, but through symmetry. They don't need translation.
They only need observation. When night falls on Giza, that communication feels most tangible.
The air cools, the stars sharpen, and the pyramid silhouette becomes a shadow. Against the sky, you can almost see it connecting, the base anchored in Earth's crust. The apex aligned with Orion, a literal line between planet and constellation.
Its geometry as conversation, physics as faith. The builders might not have used our words for it, but they understood it intuitively. If creation speaks in mathematics,
then to build in mathematics is to reply, we still do it, even if we don't realize it.
Our skyscrapers, our satellites, our probes, all of them are continuations
of that same reaching. When we send radio waves into space, hoping for a reply,
we're doing what the pyramid builders did with stone. We're broadcasting ourselves.
Living through the tools of our time. The difference is only in the medium. The message is the same.
We exist. We're trying to understand you. And maybe, if those ancient builders could see us now, mapping the stars they once honored and sending probes beyond the solar system,
they'd recognize the gesture. they'd see that we never stopped reaching. The materials changed.
The matics evolved, but the motive remained. To reach up is to remember.
That we are part of something larger. To build is to speak. To align is to listen.
The desert winds continue their slow passage over the plateau, sweeping fine grains of sand.
Across the stone faces of the pyramids. They've been doing that for thousands of years.
The stones don't move, but the world around them does, just as the message remains.
While the language changes, the pyramids don't answer questions. They ask them quietly
and endlessly through the shape of their being. That is the ancient dream of reaching up. Not to conquer the heavens, but to join them. To participate in the ongoing dialogue between what is made and what makes. Somewhere in that silence, in that perfect geometry,
the dream still hums. The pyramids in their stillness continue to lift our eyes, reminding us that we were never meant to stay grounded in our curiosity. We were meant to rise with it.
When you stand before the Great Pyramid, it doesn't speak in words. Yet something about it feels unmistakably communicative. The precision of its lines,
The symmetry of its form, the way it occupies space with such authority.
It all feels like language, but one built out of proportions instead of sentences.
There are no carvings on its outer walls, no declarations of purpose, no instructions,
Etched in stone. And yet the entire structure seems to say something, just in a vocabulary.
we no longer fully remember. To look at it is to feel that message pressing
Against the edge of comprehension, as if meaning lies just beneath the visible surface.
Waiting for someone to listen with more than their eyes. Geometry has always been one of humanity's oldest languages. Long before we had alphabets, we had shapes.
Circles, triangles, and spirals carved into cave walls, drawn in sand, arranged in bones.
And shells. You can find those same patterns in the earliest art of almost every civilization.
From the labyrinths of Cree to the carvings of the Indus Valley. From Neolithic Britain
to the deserts of Africa. The shapes repeat, not because people copied each other,
but because they arise naturally from the way we see and measure the world. Geometry is the grammar of existence, the structure behind both art and physics.
It is how nature organizes itself, and how humans perhaps unconsciously imitate that order.
The pyramid embodies that imitation perfectly. Its base, a square, represents stability,
the grounded order of the material world. Its sides, 4 triangles converging to a single point, embody ascent, the movement from multiplicity to unity.
From matter to meaning. In that simple form lies an entire philosophy of existence.
The Egyptians may not have expressed it that way, but their builders understood it intuitively. They were mathematicians, astronomers, and engineers, but also philosophers in their own right.
Expressing in stone what they believed about the cosmos, that everything from the stars
to the soul follows a pattern of balance and proportion. When archaeologists measure
the Great Pyramid, they find that its dimensions are astonishingly consistent.
Each side of the base measures roughly 230 meters, differing by only a few centimeters.
Despite the immense scale, the slope of its sides corresponds almost exactly to a ratio
that produces the constant pi when related to the pyramid's height. A mathematical relationship
that wouldn't be formally defined for thousands of years. Whether intentional or not,
that ratio connects the pyramid to the circle, the finite to the infinite.
The circle has no beginning or end, while the pyramid ends in a single point.
Together, they form a dialogue between eternity and moment, between boundlessness and precision.
It's difficult to imagine that these relationships are mere accidents. The builders of Giza
were not working from guesswork. They used chords, plumb lines, and sighting instruments
to achieve alignments that rival modern surveying techniques. Their measurements reveal
an understanding of geometry that feels almost instinctive, as though they were translating ideas, rather than inventing them. Geometry, after all, doesn't belong to any one time or culture. It's not discovered so much as recognized. The same ratios that define a seashell spiral
also define the pattern of galaxies. The same triangles that shape a roof beam appear in the paths of light through a lens. It's the same syntax everywhere.
From the smallest atom to the largest star cluster. The Egyptians might not have used the word
geometry as we do, but they spoke it fluently. To them, geometry wasn't abstract.
It was sacred. Every measure, every line, every proportion carried meaning.
When a temple or tomb was laid out, it wasn't just architecture. It was an act of alignment
between human work and cosmic order. The ancient Egyptian word for this harmony was mahat. It referred to truth, balance, and rightness, both moral and physical. To live in mahat
was to exist in accordance with the natural flow of the universe. When they built,
they weren't simply constructing spaces to occupy. They were recreating on a smaller scale
the structure of creation itself. Geometry was how they expressed reverence. To measure was to honor.
To align was to pray. The pyramid's geometry is subtle, but once you start to see it,
it unfolds endlessly. Its four sides converge to form a point that, if extended upward,
infinitely would meet the heavens. Each face mirrors one of the cardinal directions,
aligning with the Earth's magnetic and rotational axis. This creates not just visual symmetry,
but planetary resonance. The pyramid doesn't just stand on Earth. It participates in Earth's orientation. Its very shape integrates terrestrial and celestial geometry.
It is, in a sense, a bridge made of mathematics. That bridge might also be a message. In the same way that a melody can carry emotion without words, geometric form can carry intention without language to build something perfectly proportioned.
Is to say something about understanding, patience, and the desire for permanence.
When ancient builders encoded pi and the golden ratio into their work,
they were writing in the universal alphabet of pattern, a script that doesn't erode,
doesn't depend on translation, and could, in theory, be read by any mind that understands order.
If you wanted to send a message to your creators or to anyone
beyond your culture, or even your planet, you couldn't choose a better medium.
Stone endures, and geometry speeds across time. It's no wonder that later philosophers,
like Pythagoras and Plato, would treat geometry as divine language.
they saw in numbers and shapes the structure of reality itself. To them,
understanding geometry was a way to understand God. Plato inscribed above his academy's entrance,
"Let no one ignorant of geometry enter here," because he believed that mathematical harmony
was the foundation of all wisdom. But centuries before him, the builders of Egypt
were already practicing that philosophy without ever needing to write it down.
they had turned geometry into architecture, and architecture into expression.
The deeper you study their methods, the more you realize how deliberate it all was.
The base of the pyramid is leveled to within a few millimeters across an area,
the size of several football fields. The sides are not only symmetrical, but oriented so precisely
that even today, with satellites and GPS, their accuracy challenges replication.
Some scholars have suggested they achieved this by observing the stars, marking where certain constellations
rose and set, then using those points to find true north, if that's true.
Then the pyramid's geometry isn't just terrestrial, it's cosmic. Its proportions echo
both earth and sky, binding the two in a single equation of stone. There's also evidence that the builders used geometry as a means of storytelling.
Hieroglyphs carved within other structures often depict tools like the square, the compass, and the level, not as instruments of measurement, but as symbols of balance and divine creation. The gods themselves were described as measuring out the heavens.
to create in their worldview was to measure correctly, to bring order from chaos. The pyramid, therefore, wasn't just a building. It was a story told through proportion.
A narrative of creation encoded in dimension and angle. Think of how different that is
from how we built now. Modern architecture often prizes efficiency or style, but rarely symbolic meaning. The pyramid, by contrast, had to mean something.
Every stone was part of a larger logic. The act of aligning those stones was as important as the result. To build in perfect geometry was to participate
in divine reasoning. Perhaps that's why even today the structure feels alive.
with intelligence. Its silence is articulate. It communicates through the precision
of its existence. This raises an interesting question. If geometry is a language,
who was the intended recipient? Was it meant for gods, for ancestors?
For the creators of the world? Or was it meant for us, for future beings capable
of recognizing the code? The Egyptians may not have thought in those terms.
But the result functions that way. The pyramid remains readable even without hieroglyphs.
You can strip away the context and the message persists. It says, we understood pattern.
We observed the sky. We knew our place in the cosmos. and we built something to prove it. That message isn't confined to Egypt. Across the world, ancient builders spoke.
Similar geometric dialects. The stones at Stonehenge align with solstices.
The temples of Teotihuacan mirror planetary orbits. The city of Angkor was designed as a geometric model of the cosmos. Geometry seems to be a recurring bridge between human intention and universal order. Whenever we try to communicate this with something greater than ourselves, whether gods or creators or future civilizations, we reeve for patter. It's the one language we're certain the universe itself uses.
Modern scientists have recognized this too. When NASA designed the plaques and records sent aboard the Voyager spacecraft, they included diagrams of atomic structure
and planetary geometry. They didn't write in English or any human tongue.
They use symbols, ratios, and shapes, forms any intelligence might decode.
In that sense, we're still doing what the pyramid builders did. We're sending geometric messages
Into the void, hoping that someone somewhere recognizes them and understands.
That we too know the language of pattern. It's fascinating to consider that perhaps the creators,
the Egyptians imagined, the forces or beings responsible for life and order, spoke
that same language. If you believe, as many ancient cultures did, that creation itself
was an act of measurement and harmony, then to build geometrically perfect structures
was to converse with the creators on their own terms. The pyramid wasn't shouting into the cosmos. It was harmonizing with it. Its proportions matched the universe's proportions.
Like two instruments tuned to the same pitch. In that harmony lay communication.
Not through sound, but through resonance of form. Inside the pyramid,
that idea becomes physical. The geometry isn't just external. The passageways and chambers
follow precise angles and ratios, guiding the visitor through a sequence of narrowing spaces
that feel less like corridors and more like transitions. Each room changes the acoustics,
the air pressure, even the sense of time. You can't help but feel that it's designed
to shift perception, to lead the mind through a progression of understanding. It's a journey written in geometry, an architectural sentence that unfolds as you move.
The builders might not have had modern language for psychology or physics,
but they knew how to shape experience. Geometry was their syntax of transformation. It's for the Fuvering. Some researchers believe the pyramid's internal design mirrors astronomical geometry. The descending passage aligning with certain stars, the proportions matching celestial cycles. If so, then the structure operates like a kind of three-dimensional diagram of the heavens. A model that compresses cosmic order into human scale. Standing inside it would be,
in a sense, standing inside the universe's blueprint. And if that's true,
then geometry isn't just language, it's translation. The pyramid translates the vastness of the cosmos into a space humans can inhabit, turning incomprehensible immensity into something touchable. To ancient minds, this might have been the very definition.
is of communication with creators. Not speech or signal, but alignment.
When your work reflects the same order that shaped the stars, you are, in essence,
Speaking back to that order. You're saying we recognize your pattern and we can mirror it.
That's the core of geometry as a language. Its mutual intelligibility.
Between creation and consciousness. It's the meeting point where logic becomes reverence.
The more we uncover about the pyramid's construction, the more that idea seems to hold.
The precision, the symmetry, the mathematics, they all imply more than function.
They imply intention. Even the choice of location appears deliberate. The Giza Plateau sits near
The 30th parallel, a latitude that divides the planet almost evenly between pole and pole.
The pyramid's position might have been chosen not just for convenience, but for balance.
Placing it within Earth's own geometry. To the builders, the site itself may have been part
of the message, the chosen frequency at which to transmit. And what of us?
Standing there now trying to read it?
We might be the intended receivers.
Even if the senders never imagined us. The pyramid doesn't depend on culture or era.
Its proportions remain meaningful across ages. Anyone from any civilization
can measure its angles and recognize the same constants. In that sense,
geometry has succeeded where language fails. It has carried meaning across time.
It has proven that understanding can endure without words.
That endurance is perhaps the clearest communication of all. Every number, every ratio,
every angle is a statement about comprehension. It tells us that humans once looked
at the universe and didn't just see mystery. They saw structure, and they mirrored it.
They didn't worship the sky by bowing to it. They worshipped it by replicating its precision.
they spoke to their creators by demonstrating that they shared a vocabulary. When the wind moves across the desert and the light hits the pyramid's faces just right, you can almost see that vocabulary come alive. The lines sharpen, the symmetry glows.
And for a moment, the structure seems less like a ruin and more like an equation mid-sentence.
Still in the process of saying something. The message isn't in its surface,
but in its proportions. The builders may have vanished, but their geometry still speaks.
It speaks of understanding, of connection, of the quiet belief that the same order guiding the stars could be expressed in stone. In the end, maybe geometry isn't just a language. It's the oldest form of listening. To build according to its rules is to attune yourself
to something larger, to hear the hum of the universe through numbers and lines.
The pyramids aren't just messages sent outward. They're also instruments for hearing the echo.
Every measurement, every alignment is both expression and reception. They remind us
that communication isn't always about transmitting words. Sometimes it's about matching frequencies.
So the next time you see the pyramids, whether in a photograph or a dream,
try to look at them not as relics, but as sentences. Sentences written in the universal grammar of geometry, still unfolding, still resonating, still waiting for us to finish the conversation.
That began thousands of years ago. When you stand on the Giza Plateau at night,
there's a moment when everything slows down. The hum of the day fades, the air cools.
And the stars come out with a sharpness that city skies can no longer show.
The pyramids take on a different kind of presence in that light. They don't look like tombs anymore. They look like instruments, their surfaces dark and angular against the endless field of constellations. The desert is so quiet that even the smallest sound, a breeze shifting sand, a distant call feels amplified. You can almost believe that the stones themselves are listening.
And perhaps they are. For as long as they've stood, they've been in constant conversation with the sky above them. The ancient Egyptians didn't separate heaven and earth
the way we often do. To them, the stars were not faraway suns or cold points of light. They were living symbols, beings with stories and destinations. Their gods traveled among them. Their kings were promised a place within them. The afterlife wasn't somewhere vague and invisible.
It was mapped in the heavens. The night sky was not emptiness. It was order. And that order, like the geometry they built into the pyramids, could be read, measured, and mirrored.